All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are right at 12 o'clock, so we are going to go ahead and get started. Um, you guys are taking time out of your day, and I so admire when people do that because I know as a parent and even as a professional, how hard it is. But I do look at our free parent webinars as self care. And I know a lot of parents don't like to hear about self care, but I do believe it is because it's helping us on our journey. My name is Tiffany Feingold. I am the CEO and co founder of Guiding Bright Minds. And I'm so excited to have Ann Hynek here, who is the founder and CEO of Hestia Wealth and our Wealth and Wellness. Sorry about that. Thank you so much for being here and taking time out of your day. Before we jump into the presentation, I am going to share a little bit more about Guiding Bright Minds for those of you who might be new to Guiding Bright Minds, not familiar with who we are. So, Guiding Bright Minds launched because of my experience as a parent of a neurodivergent child. I was overwhelmed. I was lost. My son was getting kicked out of daycare, sent to the principal's office in kindergarten. That's heartbreaking. And it was overwhelming for me to think, how are we doing this to our kids? And why is this happening? And how do parents navigate getting services, looking for providers, looking for resources? So, Guiding Bright Minds was birthed out of the intent to help parents all in one place, to have you be able to come here to look for those trusted, vetted providers. I meet with every provider who is part of the Guiding Bright Minds community to find out why they're doing what they're doing, how they're doing it, and to ensure too that they're all part of a community that works collaboratively together. And that's why we're so excited to have these presentations and have these opportunities to meet these providers who are so engaged in what we're doing on a daily basis so that we can overcome some of those damaging stigmas and stereotypes. Please visit us at guidingbrightminds.com. We're also getting ready to host our fourth annual Neurodiversity Resource Fair. That's going to be on June 13th at Denver Academy. There's so much information, but I'll provide links to all of these so you can check us out and check out our further free parent webinars. We also are doing an amazing Birthday Buddies program for all those that have our younger kids from 4 to 9. You have the opportunity to celebrate because unfortunately, a reality is that many of our kids don't get invited to birthday parties. And so we want to make sure that everyone feels that they have the opportunity to meet community that supports them, that embraces them, that understands them. This is going to be or is being recorded, and a copy of the presentation and recording will be sent out to everyone who registered. So without further ado, because I know Anne is actually presenting on a panel right after this. And so we will allow for questions and answers afterwards. And we'll put those in the chat or the Q&A. So Anne, let me turn it over to you and share about the wonderful services you're doing and just how you're helping families along their journey.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tiffany, and thank you for having me. As Tiffany said, my name is Ann Hynek, and I am an autism mom, first and foremost. I'm also the founding partner and CEO of Hestia Wealth and Wellness. And as Tiffany noted, I know you have a lot on your to-do list, and I really appreciate you spending time with me. So just a little bit about me and how I got here to this webinar. I created Hestia Wealth and Wellness after quitting my corporate job last spring. I'd been in financial services and on Wall Street for nearly 20 years. But when my son was diagnosed with autism at age 3, it really became clear to me that the industry does not serve individuals with special needs or the people who care for them. And I know I don't need to be telling you about this gap. You are already aware. So I spent some time building a network of specialists and providers here in Colorado, and I did what I could to support my son. And then last spring, I decided to become the resource I wished I'd had the day that he was diagnosed. And today I work with families navigating the financial complexities of special needs planning. And my goal is to help parents feel confident in supporting their child. And for those of you who are into Greek mythology, Hestia was the goddess of hearth and home. When everyone went off to battle, she stayed home and kept the fire burning. So it's a safe place to land after long days of chaos. I know we can all relate. And she's a goddess, and there aren't enough women in finance. So that's where the name came from. So we can get started with that. Okay. So here's what reality looks like for most, if not all of us on this call. I just want to acknowledge this. I think sometimes we all get so wrapped up in our roles and what we do every single day that we don't even realize how many hats we're wearing and how many plates we're balancing. So just the fact that you're here right now, taking on more to help your child is it's a lot, and I thank you. For me personally, when my son was diagnosed, navigating the resources and planning for the future honestly became a second full-time job. There's so many resources in Google, but I had no idea where to start, no idea which provider was the right fit, and no idea who, if anyone, actually accepted insurance. Looking back, I think going down the Google rabbit hole was probably the worst thing I could have done. It made me feel extremely rushed and overwhelmed, and I don't recommend that. So if I had it to do over, I would slow down, write out what I needed, what my son needed, organize one or two people who can make introductions, like Tiffany. So we'll get into do-overs later, but that's what's so great about guiding bright minds. You know, Tiffany and her team have done a great job of bringing people together and really building a community. And that's exactly what I had in mind when building Hestia, just providing a subject matter expert when it comes to planning and working with people like Tiffany to ensure that there's a resource available for the work that I do not specialize in. Okay, we're diving right in. This is the elephant in the room slide, and I hate that it's slide 3. It's very soon into this. We just met. But we all know that in addition to all of the responsibilities we take on as special needs parents, we have this glaring question that keeps us all awake at night. What happens when I am no longer here? So, building a plan for my son helped to assuage some of that fear. And I do have a clear roadmap in place for him, but it took some time and a really good team. So, I'm hoping today we can talk through some of the basics so you can better know your options when it comes to answering this very question. I just want everyone to know that you are not alone in figuring this out. That is the key. With my son's diagnosis came an overwhelming sense of isolation. That was probably one of the biggest emotions. And I want to repeat, you are not alone in this. Okay, so all together, here's what we're looking at. I know the intro to this webinar when you signed up was nothing scary. So there are some scary questions, but I promise we'll get into it and talk about how to handle it. So in addition to that future absence question, the expenses that keep us up at night, I'm naming them here because we want everything out in the open, not to scare you, but I also don't want any surprises. And we will soon dig into some of the ways to help pay for these costs. But first, I have another sort of do-over lesson that I learned when my son was diagnosed. So if you'll allow me just a brief tangent. So benefits and tools and resources are obviously important. But first, we must get clear on what our values are and what we want. So as I alluded to earlier, we're dealing with systems and industries that were not built for our families. So we flip the script. Here's what I mean by that. First, we get clear on what we want and need, not what's available to us through an agency or a program. We get clear on what our values are, what we want for our children now and in the future. We can then create a vision based on those values and desires for each life stage, from diagnosis to turning 18 to setting the stage for when we're no longer around. and then we build that strategic plan. Bear with me, I know this might seem off topic. So this slide might be a bit confusing considering the source. I am a financial advisor and I do work closely with estate and trust attorneys, but finding clarity doesn't start with money and it doesn't start with lawyers. It starts with what you want for your family, for your child, for your future, for their future, and what you value the most. So here is how I break down the 3 areas where we find clarity, starting with your child's life. We consider their needs, their strengths, their preferences. I know that sometimes this is a bit unclear when the child is young, but you can implement their personality into your plan as they grow and adjust accordingly. And then looking at your family reality, this encompasses time, energy, and capacity. And then finally, your future vision. What does a good future look like to you? So, as special needs parents, there are so many questions running through our minds all the time. We covered probably the biggest one at the beginning of this presentation. Again, I'm sorry, that was a little abrupt. But it seems that there are always more questions than answers. And without the clarity of what we want, what our vision is, the question always multiply. And we all know this firsthand. So, my advice to you is to write them down and seek the answers that align with your vision. So, this is just a mini exercise. I encourage you to write these 3 questions down or take a picture and put them somewhere where you can easily refer back to them and contemplate them as you begin to find clarity and create your vision. So, I'll give you just a couple of beats while you do that, and then we'll move on. Okay. Hopefully you're fast writers. I know we're a little crunched for time. Okay, so why this matters. So remember the Google rabbit hole that I mentioned? Yeah, the struggle is real. Had I just identified my child's needs and outlined my family's reality instead of vision, my questions would have felt more manageable. Like I said, just write it down, get it out of your head, and get it on paper. So once you have clarity, you then create a vision for your child's life, and then you're ready to build a strategy. So instead of reading from a list of tools and trying to jam your vision into one of them, you can use the clarity around your vision and then identify the tools that fit. So you might find that there are several tools that you can use together to meet your objectives. So instead of asking, oh, do I need a special needs trust? You ask, what tool or structure best supports my child's life? So here are another examples of how that clarity helps us to reframe our decisions and build a strategy. Should I save more becomes, what are we saving for? Do I apply for benefits and how becomes, how do benefits actually fit into our plan? And then what happens at age 18 becomes, what level of independence is right for my child? So you're going essentially from the Google rabbit hole to a roadmap. Okay, so now we can dive into ways to pay for your vision of the future. So, when it comes to creating a plan for our goals around our loved one and our ways of funding these goals, we'll start with government benefits. We could spend hours on this slide alone. It's boring and I don't want to put you to sleep. So, I'm just going to give you an overview and 2 key tips. So on the left, we have what the government calls means tested benefits. These include supplemental security income, SSI, and Medicaid. And these benefits are based on income or level of need. And when I say income, I mean the income of your adult child. So after they turn 18. So, key tip number 1, you might want to write this down or watch the recording a few times, but whatever you do, if your child meets the Social Security Administration's definition of being disabled or blind, be sure that they apply for benefits when they turn 18. Qualifying for those benefits gets more difficult as they age. In most states, including Colorado, where I am, an application for SSI is also an application for Medicaid. So you don't have to submit applications for both, just SSI. And thank God for finding ways to do less paperwork. Medicaid is very important in this. It provides access to long-term care. So on the right, we have what the government calls entitlement benefits. So these include Social Security Disability Insurance, SSDI, and Medicare. These benefits require a work history. So key tip number 2 here, a child can receive SSDI, disabled adult child, or DAC benefits, sorry about all the acronyms, based on a parent's work history. If they are unmarried, age 18 or older, and have a disability that began before age 22, the parent themselves must be receiving retirement or disability benefits or be deceased in order for their adult child to be eligible. Minor children under age 18 may also receive benefits if a parent is disabled or deceased. There's also Section 8 benefits and veterans benefits, and there are also what are known as Medicaid waivers. But we're going to stick primarily with means tested for now. Okay. So here's the fun part about means tested benefits. And by fun, I mean, what the heck? So, in order to qualify for SSI, your loved one may not have more than $2,000 in assets in their name month to month. That includes savings accounts, that includes checking accounts, and that includes investment accounts. So, in order to qualify for benefits under SSI, they can't have more than $2,000. This is another reason why it's important to apply for benefits at age 18. They're just starting out as an adult. So, $2,000. I don't think this number has actually been updated since the H.W. Bush administration. And if any of you feel like throwing something, be my guest. Just don't throw whatever it is that's enabling you to participate in this webinar. I just know that I personally get really, really fired up about this. So this $2,000 number is why it's important to save and invest appropriately for your loved one. We don't want the assets to be held in their name because we don't want to jeopardize their benefits eligibility. So we have to look at other tools for funding and benefit production. So before diving into those tools, let's do a quick little recap. We discussed your multiple roles as a parent of a child with special needs. We talked about that big question, what happens when you're gone? We looked at our list of typical expenses, and then we took a detour into why it's important to find clarity before taking any action. And then we took a very brief look at government benefits that can help us pay for it. And then we realized that government benefits are tricky and they don't make it easy for us to save for the future and keep our loved one on SSI and Medicaid. So we covered a lot. Thank you for not hanging up. As you probably noticed, I like lists to help me keep things organized. So I created the 5 pillars of special needs financial planning. A lot goes into it, but we're focusing on clarity and vision, and that helps us to build a framework around these pillars. So we'll go through each pillar and review how we can address the scary questions and utilize savings and investments the right way. Okay. So pillar number 1, protecting benefits. So we talked about government benefits and the asset limits and the weird restrictions. And now we'll talk about the tools to save and invest while protecting benefits eligibility. The ARC of the United States, which is an organization that is pretty well known for its advocacy for individuals with disabilities, actually fought for the establishment of ABLE accounts. These are savings and investing vehicles for individuals with special needs that do not interfere with benefits as long as certain rules are followed. There's always a set of rules. So we'll go through those. There's a limited amount of money that can be placed in an ABLE account each year. It's $20,000 for the state of Colorado in 2026. and the ABLE account must never have more than $100,000 in it to remain eligible for SSI. So, to qualify for opening an ABLE account, the onset of the disability must have occurred before age 46. That's actually new this year. It used to be before age 26, but then someone got smart and said, hey, people out there sometimes sustain traumatic brain injuries, and it may happen long after their 26th birthday. So maybe they should have access to this too. Um, I don't actually know if anyone really said that, but there was a decision made to give ABLE accounts to more people, and that's a win, however it came about. So, ABLE accounts earnings grow tax free, and funds must be used for disability related expenses. And I get questions all the time. When my son was diagnosed, for example, I wasn't sure whether or not I wanted to start a 529 plan for him. Wasn't sure if he'll be going to college. He's 6 now, so there's still a question. But it is actually possible to transfer funds from a 529 account into an ABLE account. So if you opened a 529 account and you want to have an ABLE account and use the proceeds in your ABLE account, you can transfer that money as long as it's under that $20,000 limit, at least in the state of Colorado. Okay, that's a lot. I'm going to take a breath. Next on the list, we have special needs trusts. So do not be deterred by the word trust. They're not just for multimillionaires who have drivers and butlers. They are also for people who want to plan for the future while protecting benefits eligibility. We could spend a lot of time on this, so I'll just try to keep it brief. There are first party special needs trusts, third party special needs trusts, and pooled trusts. And like I said, I'm happy to walk through each one of them with you over coffee sometime. But for now, I would just say that third party special needs trusts are probably the most common. And for those who have smaller estates, a pooled trust may be the best option because the administration costs are much lower. Here's something to keep in mind. How money is structured actually matters more than how much money there is. You could be a multimillionaire with a driver and a butler, and if you have money for your loved ones saved in the wrong place, that money won't make the difference that it could have had it been saved and invested properly. So just something to keep in mind. Okay. Pillar number 2, we have pursuing financial security. So this slide ultimately will just be another list of tips that I have for you. Like I said, we could go into all of these in depth, but I think just knowing some of the key takeaways are important for the time that we have. So for families with special needs, I recommend about 6 to 12 months of emergency savings. I think the average for typical families tends to be about 3 to 6 months, but it's good to have that doubled for special needs families. I also recommend working with an advisor who looks at the whole picture from therapies to education to life transitions and long-term goals. Someone who can help you build a portfolio to fit your investment objectives. So, for example, how does a special needs trust need to make payments? Does it have to be regularly? Does it have to be right now? Or are you saving for future expenses? You've got your clarity and your vision. You are an expert in your kid and what they need. You don't need to be an expert at anything else. So just give it to the other experts, people like me, and then put us to work. I think it's important in some cases to also consider using a health savings account or HSA. It has tax benefits, it rolls over from year to year, and you can use it to pay for ongoing qualified medical expenses. And then here's a timely one for April 15th. You might want to consider talking to your tax professional about itemizing your deductions instead of taking the standard deduction if you have medical expenses for the year that exceed 7.5% of your adjusted gross income, also known as your AGI. I am trying so hard not to use acronyms. I think and hope that that is the last one. So the next pillar here, legal counsel. It's important to have an estate attorney document your wishes for what happens after you're gone. I would also recommend finding an attorney who specializes in writing special needs trusts if that's something that you are interested in. And sometimes actually an elder law attorney can help here. Um, and one of the biggest surprises some of our clients encounter is not having the legal authority over medical records when their child turns 18. So just something else to keep in mind for your child's 18th birthday. They are officially an adult, and you will no longer have access to those records. I had a friend who checked her son's health portal 2 days after his 18th birthday, and she was locked out. So before your child turns 18, it's important to look into guardianship if that's appropriate or supported decision making. There are differences in terms of the independence of the child, depending on, which one you select, and that's another thing that we can talk about over coffee to figure out whatever choice is right for your family. Okay, so insurance protection. This one may not be an obvious one. You may have a job that enables you to pay for treatments and therapies out of pocket. Now, this doesn't mean you should. That's another mistake that I made as a special needs mom just after a diagnosis. But if you do, think about this. What if something happens to you that makes it impossible to continue in your current role? So here's what I mean. When my son was born, I immediately bought life insurance to support him if anything ever happened to me. But I never thought about disability insurance for myself. If something happened and I survived, but was unable to sustain the level of activity I had prior to the accident, I would need some sort of financial support for myself and my child. So when benefits enrollment time comes around again at work, it's usually October, I think. Um, Please consider signing up if there is an option to do so. Another consideration for you, many parents use life insurance to fund a special needs trust. So upon death, you can make it so that the proceeds of the life insurance policy go to the trust to supplement your child's expenses through their lifetime. So if you have means to save and invest for the special needs trust right now, great. If you don't, you can utilize the proceeds of your life insurance policy to fund that trust later. So there are options. Okay, so pillar number 5, planning for lifetime care. This slide goes back to that big question, what happens when I'm no longer here? It's a scary thing to think about, but writing down what your intentions are, maybe even going so far as writing a life plan or a letter of intent, can help you get organized, bring clarity, solidify your vision, and help you build a plan. I like to host free workshops on how to create a life plan or letter of intent. I also have some templates that I hope are helpful. So let me know if you're interested, and we'll be sure to sign you up for either a workshop or one of the templates. Um, Whatever you do, though, please be sure to create a written record of what you want for your loved one for others to use as a guide when you are gone. Um, I'm hoping that it will bring you peace of mind right now and ease the transition when you're no longer here. And again, I'm very mindful that you all have a lot going on, so you don't have to get it all done at once, but just starting that letter or starting that plan and adding to it when you can. Like I said, I hope it brings you peace of mind just knowing that there's a guidebook out there in case something happens to you. So common mistakes. The biggest mistake I made was the Google rabbit hole. Guilty, diving in without clarity around what I needed, what my child needed, and what I wanted the future to look like. So others include waiting too long to start planning. No one likes to think about these things. No one has time to think about these things. But the sooner you sit down and put a plan in place, the better off you'll be. Um, it's not too late. It's a good sign that you're all joining today. So good for you, especially with all the other things you have going on. But think of it this way, lying awake at night, wondering what will happen when you're gone. What if you had a plan in place that outlined exactly what that future could look like, what you want it to look like, and know that you've done all that you can to ensure it goes the way that you want it to? Again, it doesn't have to happen all at once. You can take your time, but I think just setting aside a plan is extremely helpful. Good planning can help create that clarity, protection, and confidence in the future, or again, peace of mind. Okay, we're getting towards the end. I'm sure you're all like, finally. So here are some first steps that you can take. Most of them are pretty straightforward, and they don't have to happen all at once. Um, so for that first one, I encourage you to look at the 3 questions that I had you write down or take a picture of earlier, and start making some notes when you can. And then that last one, when it comes to assembling your team, what I mean here is once you've outlined what you want your future to look like or have some idea, it's time to contact the professionals who can help get you there. And as Tiffany and I discussed earlier, Guiding Bright Minds is a great resource. It's vetted people, not complete, not complete and total strangers. So you can find your people. They're out there, and we're hoping to help you find them. Okay. So as I mentioned, when my son was diagnosed, I immediately started Googling. What I should have done is started to just write things down. You know, what did I need? What did my son need? You guys remember everything that we talked about. So when I launched the firm, I built a financial clarity checklist. It's designed to help you begin that planning process. Just knowing what you have, where the gaps may be, and what questions you need answered can really help you to start this process. And all of you will be receiving it for joining us today. And if your friends are jealous, you can also get it at my website. So everyone has an opportunity to access it. Like I said, you don't have to finish it all in one setting. These things take time. So do what you can when you can. And then if you get stuck on it or have questions about it, you can visit my website and schedule a free consultation to get your questions answered. We will walk through it together. So thank you again for joining. And if you have questions, you know where to find me. We're also on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And I post planning tips and other information there. So be sure to follow. And I think we have some time for a
Yes, thank you
question or
so
two
much,
from the group.
Anne. So,
Yeah,
so just to remind everyone, I will be sending a copy of the presentation and the recording out. And then, Anne, if there's any other documents that I can post, so
sure.
what I'll do is put a file and everyone will have access to that file.
Perfect.
Because
Yep.
we've had a few people say that they're interested in the planning forms or letter of intent. So
Good.
yeah, just send that to me.
Excellent.
And you guys, this will probably be sent out the end of this week, early next week. It's at my flexibility of times, but I promise you'll get it either the end of this week or early next week, with all the recording and the details. So if you send that to me, and don't forget, if you do have any questions, to put in the chat or the Q&A. Um, thank you again. There's so much to think about and plan for. So I do have a
Yeah.
question. If um people have put maybe a will together, will and trust or different things. Now, do you guys review what has been already put in place to determine what we might be missing? Or
Yes, absolutely. So, full disclosure, I am not an attorney, so I can't make recommendations. But what we do is we review the documents that you have already. We work with you to identify gaps and maybe some questions that you might want to ask your attorney. So, perfect example, and I'll try to make this as short as I can. It's a bit long-winded, but I have a really good friend who set up a testamentary special needs trust, which basically means that upon her death, the trust is set up with her life insurance benefits. And she set it up like 5 or 6 years ago. And she asked me to take a look at it. And my first question was, why did you set up the trust to be established at your death versus setting it up for your lifetime, which is known as an inter vivos trust? There's some Latin in there, which is always fun. Um, and an inter vivos trust essentially establishes the trust during your lifetime so that you can save and invest in it. So those proceeds grow. And then upon your death, they are transferred to your child. And her response was, no one ever told me about that. And so that's exactly what we do. We try to, educate you on all of the potential options. Again, I can't provide legal advice, but I can help you know what you don't know, if that makes sense.
well, and what the attorneys don't know, because I mean, a lot of them don't have the understanding of all of what's included in the special needs and neurodivergent population. So they're coming
Correct.
with this legal end, and you're coming with kind of, well, here's things to ask and questions to think about and what to look at and what to ask for. So no,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. I don't see any questions in the chat or Q&A. Um, Anything else, like one tip that was an aha moment for you before you need to run, that parents should think about as well, besides everything you pointed out here today?
Yeah, it was a lot. Again, thank you for not hanging up, those of you who are still with us. Um, I would say, as a planner myself and as a recovering perfectionist, I think again, like one of the biggest mistakes I made was trying to pinpoint the right specialist who was taking clients or taking patients and not really looking at how much they were charging because that need was so urgent and it was like I just wanted to fix everything. I just wanted to have everything figured out and fixed. And I think the first thing you need to do, and I know this is against our nature as parents, but the first thing you need to do is really slow down and say, like, what is actually needed? And then are there people who can help me in that search, people who can make recommendations and maybe even help me figure out what resources are available that may even take my insurance. So for those of the fixers of you out there, I would say just slow down and find that clarity, and then set what your vision is before you start hunting.
I love that. And do you, because of your experience too, do you have experience with any lawyers that you do know that has special needs? And maybe there's a list that you could provide or ones that you've had, but that was a question for one of the, yeah.
Yes, so I do. I have a couple here in Colorado. There are two that I know in California. I know a few in Michigan, New York, and Massachusetts, and I'm trying to grow that network. So yeah, absolutely. If you're looking for referrals, I'm happy to share.
Great. And I wrote the name of the person who's asking about that too, and maybe that we can do them there. And
Okay, great.
a great couple points, and I know you got to run. Make sure to have your child get transition services from school district before graduation and walk in
Yes.
with their diploma. Get in programs for your child to get a job. Yes, those are great. Thanks, Pamela, for suggesting that. Um, and then somebody said, I think some people are worried about upfront costs for setting up a trust. Is there a cost range we should be aware of? Also, yes, a list of attorneys was highly. So I'll put
Okay.
that in the
Yeah.
documents that I send for everyone. But yeah,
Yep.
what is the preparation cost?
So it's a great question. Obviously, there are lawyers' fees when you initially set it up, and then there are fees associated with the administration. So having a trustee, and that's where the pooled trust option can come in. And I think trustee costs vary, of course, like there's no one solid answer. It's so frustrating. But there are trustees that are, smaller organizations. I actually know of two here in Denver that are pretty excellent. And then there are large banks that offer trustee services. So I'm happy to put something together again with ranges and all of that good stuff. And then there's also pooled trusts, which I'll include in the comparison.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Oh, thank
Anne
you.
does have to run. She's on a panel. She's traveling right now. So thank you for taking the time to do this.
Oh,
I know you do
thank you
have
so
to go.
much.
Thank you everyone for spending the time with us today. And we'll get all these resources out for you and hopefully address all the questions as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thanks,
Have a
everyone.
good one.
Bye.